We begin Daf Mem Beis Mesechtes Yevamos on the bottom of Mem Beis, Mem Aleph Mem Beis, 2 lines up at the bottom of the Amud. The Gemara continues discussion regarding the first 3 months that our previous Mishnah has said that one has to wait before one does Yibum or Chalitza. Gemara continues on that theme regarding when do we consider that 3-month period. We also discussed regarding situations of the Safek Ben Rishon, Safek Ben Achron, regarding what the parameters of that would be, regarding different cases when it would seemingly not be a concern, and regarding the halacha of our Mishnah, regarding the when is it possible that we would not be concerned regarding from the first husband to the second husband, where it would be contingent on the machlekes. So we begin the current daf Malvim and Beis. 2 lines up at the bottom of the Amud. Termo, learn the brisa. Yevama, a woman that her husband died without any children. Where her the brothers went and did chalitza within the first 3 months. So, like, as we said in the Mishnah, we said that related halacha, don't do yibum chalitza, but even though she already has chalitza already, but she has to wait 3 months from the day of the death to be able to go ahead and move on and get married to someone else. As a getin tab mem bezem al, but let's say they did chalitza, they waited like the halacha of the Mishnah. It's already after 3 months they did chalitza. Then she doesn't have to wait 3 months now from the chalitza to get married to someone else. Now she could already move on since it's already 3 months from the death. So the Gemara makes the following comment: so in other words, you could learn from here. The 3 months that they said in our Mishnah that you have to wait is Meshas Misas Abal, is from when the husband died. Not from when the Yevam does chalitza. Meaning our Mishnah says wait to do chalitza and Yibum after 3 months. But then there's another halacha that was saying in the Brisa that you have to wait 3 months to get married to someone else. When is that 3 months? Is it from the husband's death or from the chalitza? Obviously you could infer that it's from the husband's death. So the Gemara wonders, Ma'ishnu get. Why is chalitza any different than get? That's really the biblical forerunner of chalitza. Chalitza is also a biblical halacha, but regarding being considered as divorced, get is a similar concept. Where the Rav says, Meshas Nasina, that when do you start counting the 3 months is when the get is actually given. Shmuel on Meshas Kasiva, Shmuel says when it's written. So the question is from Rav, that although that from the time it was written, the man and the woman were not secluded. As Rashi points out, because if they would have been secluded after the time it was written, it would be considered get yashin. An old get, where we're concerned that if they were intimate, they would have a child, and it was already written, and the date is going to be before the child's due date because of when the conception was. So they weren't secluded, and therefore it's still going to be valid as a get. And even so, Rav holds that you don't count from the time it was written. He holds only time when it was given. So why don't you say something over here that based on when the chalitza was actually given is when you should count the 3 months, not when it was written, meaning when you were able to already start giving the chalitza, which when the husband dies. Shais explains a little more succinctly. He says, the reason for this halacha is said in the second parak in Gittin Daf Yomi Aleph, that we don't want people to say that, look, there's 2 women in the same courtyard, who they were divorced at the same time. But, although divorced at the same time, one's get was written earlier than the other one. And they're going to say, wait a second, this one's forbidden, this one's permitted? Because people think that the writing of both the gets of the gittin were right before it was given. And therefore they're going to come to permit the one that was actually written later within her first 3 months, because they can say, hey, she's getting married, why can't she get married? But they're not going to realize when it was written. That's what Rav holds. You come from the Shas of Nesina. So therefore our Gemara's question is something by chalitza. They're going to think that both of them, that right after the death of the husband is when they got chalitza, and they're going to come to permit the one within 3 months. So therefore, we should always have to wait 3 months from the chalitza, not from the death, because people are not going to realize that regarding whose death was earlier, and we should just go based on the chalitza, because people think the chalitza is right after death. So why are we any different than Allah of get that Rav holds Meshas Nesina for that reason? So here also should be Meshas Chalitza for that reason too. So Rabbi says, yeah, you might have a point, but it's Kabbalah Chaimer that we're not going to make her wait 3 months from the chalitza, and it's only going to be from the time of the death, because Issachar Satarta, you permitted the woman to the Yavam immediately after 3 months have passed, which is a chiyuv of kares, but you said you're allowed to do yibum after 3 months. So isolav, that's prohibited by with only negative prohibition of getting married to someone else. Like koshkin isn't all the more so that for sure you're going to permit right after chalitza immediately, because it's already been 3 months from the death. If you permit yibum 3 months from the death, for sure you're going to permit yivam l'shuk 3 months after the death, and you're not going to require her to wait 3 months from after the chalitza. The Mishnah said, now, although we're talking in the context of a yibum, and that's why we said this idea of waiting 3 months, we said it's really not just halacha unique to the yibum process. There's also any woman, when she had a previous relationship, she has to wait 3 months before she gets married to the next man. So the Gemara wonders, like we said in the previous Daf, that if it turns out to be Eish Shach Sheyesh Labanim, you're going to be encountering the Chiyav Karas of Eish Shach. So I understand why you got to wait 3 months to figure out if there's a child from the first husband. But all other women, who cares? What? There's no prohibition over here if she had a child from the first husband. Why can't she get married right afterwards? So Rabbi Shloimy says, because the pasuk says in Bereshis, Hashem says to Avraham Avinu that Liyas l'chol elikim, to be for you a God, ulezarecha acharecha, and to your children after you, which is the divine presence does not rest only on those who have definitive lineage, which are distinct to the father, and that's how the Gemara says in the Dam Naf Chav Beis, that Hashem says, I'm going to separate from you the rebellious ones and those who are the sinners, which those are what's called Bnei Ervuvia, the intermingled children. You don't know who's the father of who. And therefore, the reason why over here you have to wait is lahavchem bin zar shalishon l'zar shasheni, to differentiate between the seed of the first and the seed of the second. Just pasha to know the yichus, that's important principle that Hashem says to Avraham Avinu, and therefore you have to wait 3 months because we have to know who's the father of the child, although you're right, there's no any prohibition. But Masav Rava asked that Lafikach says in the Brisa, therefore based on this halacha, the Brisa says, ger v'geyeris, regarding if someone converted and he was married as a Gentile, with his wife they converted. So they have to wait 3 months, that they have to separate the man and the woman. Now the problem is, if you tell me that the reason of this halacha is based on differentiation, here there's no first and second person. So what are you separating 3 months for? And you're saying it's the same halacha, the Bryce is continuing, that's the reason for ger is separated. So it says, no, hachanam here also. There is a differentiation. Ben Zeresh and Izbek Gedusha regarding the seed that is going to be planted in sanctity, which has yichus when they're already Jewish. Regarding the seed that they had, which was when they weren't Jewish yet. We need to know when was this woman pregnant from when the same couple, but when they were non-Jewish or when they are Jewish, therefore you have the same halacha of havchana. So that's one pshat, that's one understanding of why a regular woman, not just the Yevama, has to wait 3 months from one relationship to another one. Rav Amay gives a different interpretation. It says, Gezerah, it's a decree, that if this woman gets married within 3 months from a previous relationship, and she has a child, and it's 9 months from when she was still with the first husband, but now she's giving birth with her second husband. Now, everyone, it looks like, no one was able to tell that she was pregnant when she got married. They're going to think it's the son of the second husband. Oh, that's a decree. Because Shema Yisa maybe that the child, her son, is going to marry the daughter of her first husband, who he had from a different woman, obviously not from her, because that would be his sister with the same mother, but from a different woman. And that's a chaysim yavim. Really, the first man was his father, and he's going to be marrying his paternal sister. So because of that, you have to wait 3 months. Or, another case, and there's 4 different possibilities that can go wrong, v'yabim eshes achiv me'imoy. He's going to do yibam to his maternal brother's wife. Meaning, if let's say this second husband that she's married to has another son, and with her, and that son's going to marry a woman, and he's going to die without any children. This son is going to do yibam to that sister-in-law, thinking that it's his paternal brother. But really, he's a son of the first husband. Comes out, he's doing yibum to his maternal brother, because they share the same mother, not the same father, potentially. And that's a chiv of karas, because it's eish tacham me'imoy, without the het of yibum, because not eish tacham me'avav. Or a third potential problem is v'yotzis imoy l'shuk. He's going to let his mother go marry someone else. Meaning, if let's say the mother who married his second husband dies without any other children, now they're going to think this was their child. So the mother's going to marry someone else without chalitza because they think they have the child, but really the child's not from him, from the second husband, really from the first husband. Or a fourth potential problem is v'yiftas yivimta l'shuk, which is when he's going to let his true Yevama go marry someone else. If let's say that he has a paternal brother from the first husband, meaning we were concerned that maybe he's really from the first husband, and he has a brother, but there was no children to that first brother, and he dies without any children. The only other brother is this one, who was obviously born when his mother was already with the second husband. Now, he himself thinks that he was a son of the second husband. Comes out, the wife of this of the son of the first husband is really zakuk to him, and she's going to get married, Rachalitza, thinking she has no Yevamot. Additionally, regarding the end of the Brisa, to explain for Rava, regarding, we said the same concern is for Ger, for Gigeris, for one of these four concerns you would have here also. We have the same concern of maybe he's going to do Yibam to Eishes Achav Me'imai, to his maternal brother's wife. Well, what would the case be? Let's say this non-Jewish couple that's converting, the woman was pregnant. When she gives birth, she thinks it was after they became Jewish already, and it's 7 months since they had been intimate after they became Jewish, and that he's a regular Jewish child, which they were already a Jewish couple. Then they're going to have another child, another baby after, another son. That other son, the second son, is going to get married, and die without any children. Now, this first son is going to yim to his wife, thinking that he's also a Jewish sibling. The problem is, really, he was seminated already when they were still not Jewish, which Rashi adds in the words, which is contested if you need this. A regular non-Jewish woman is a zayna, and there's no yichus to the father to be as like a paternal child for the laws of Yibam, or you could say in general there's no paternity for a non-Jewish man. But either way, you could say that maybe it's not really the son of the father. And it comes out that he's marrying his maternal brother's wife and not paternal. And that's a chiur, of course, because he's also a Jewish person right now. So because of all these concerns, that's the reasoning for the halacha that a regular woman needs to wait 3 months, because you could run into potential arais. But on this interpretation, Master of Hanan, he asks in the following brisa. Brisa says, Bekulan, regarding all these women that the Chacham said it's forbidden to them to get married or to do yibum, which Taisa says it's really going on the Yevama only. That, and the word kulan is her all types of Yevamas, whether she's engaged or she was married, whether to do yibum, to get married to someone else. Either way, regarding all the mani korban, I recite on them, which as Taisa says, meaning if she does chalitza with him 3 months, that she would have to wait 3 months. Why? Which halacha we're explaining from our previous Mishnah. Because of the rectification of the laws of Arayas, so that it doesn't come to a situation of erva. Like we said, because it might be a potential eishes ach sheyesh labanim. So you obviously you have to wait 3 months. But v'kan, says the Brisa, here when you're waiting 3 months, which Chacham said is problematic even for another woman who had a previous relation, not a Yevama, there's no takana of Arayas. There it's because Mishum Takana is vlad. Because we have to rectify the child, which is, like we said, you have to, like the first interpretation of the Gemara, you have to know the paternity of the child. But says the Gemara, B'm Isa, if you hold like the second interpretation of the Gemara of Rava, that the Chacham concern for a real Arayis problem, that he might marry his paternal sister, which is from the first husband, which he thinks is not related to. So then Kulu, then all of them, even the second category that are regular women, not Yevamos, Mishum Takana Zerba, that's also Takana of Arayis. So why is it differentiating from that of Yevama? Says the Gemara, you're right, but Haimashim Takan is Vlad. When we said that that's a situation of rectifying the child, it doesn't mean like the first interpretation had said to know the paternity of the child. That just means Delay Lifka Bahu Erva, that the child should not encounter a situation of Erva. Like you said, he might marry his paternal sister from the first husband. In contrast, all the other cases of Yevamas that they're forbidden, that's a takana for the woman and her husband themselves, that they should not encounter Erva. Here it's also for Erva, but that of the child not encountering Erva. That's why we call it, but you're right, it's also a situation of Erva. But now the Gemara asks on the entire halacha of our previous Mishnah regarding this of waiting 3 months, because we have to know we don't want to be stuck in the situation of Safik ben Shiva la'achron or ben Tish l'rishon. Says, wait a second. I get it, why you can't just wait 2 months and have this woman get married, meaning, let's say the case of a regular woman, not a Yevama, who is married to one man, and you tell me she has to wait 3 months to get married. I understand why 2 months you cannot wait, because the Hainu Sege, that would be the situation of doubt. Because in Talmudic times, a woman would either have a baby after 9 months or after 7 months. Those are the 2 times. So, Ibar Tishalakama, if it's 9 months from the first husband, Ibar Shivalabasar, or might be 7 months from the second husband. We don't know. So that would be the classic situation. You can't just wait 2 months. You're setting yourself up. That would have been either she got seminated the moment her husband died, and now it's 9 months, or the moment she got married 2 months later from the second husband. It could be either one of those. So that wouldn't be good. Wait 1 month from the last husband, and then get remarried. As follows. If she gives birth 7 months after she got married, this is obviously a 7-month baby from the second husband, because if you think she became pregnant from the first husband, when he died, it comes out, it's already been 8 months, because she waited a month after she left him, or that he died, and this is an 8-month baby. In Talmudic times, the 8-month baby couldn't live. So obviously, if it's 7 months, it's from the second husband. And ve'ila tamani yalda, and if she's giving birth after 8 months, so haibar tishlakama, this obviously 9 months from the first husband, because you waited 1 month plus 8, that's 9 from the first one, because can't be 8 months from the second husband, because the 8-month baby wouldn't survive in Talmudic times. And if it's 9 months and you already wait 1 month, obviously it's from the second husband. So why do you have to wait 3 months? Wait 1 month. So the Gemara answers like this: no, it's not true. Because if she would give birth 8 months, if she waited 1 month, then she got married and she gave it birth to a baby 8 months later, you would still be stuck. Because maybe you could say the bastruhu. You could say it's the second one. How could it be second one? I thought 8-month babies don't survive in Talmudic times. Yeah, but maybe they delayed 1 month after they got married, and only or maybe she only got pregnant a month after she got married. Which, as Rashi points out, the Gemara could have easily answered also, even if she gives birth 7 months later, you could say that it's really 9 months from the first husband. Why? Isn't that an 8-month baby from that one? No. Maybe a month before he died, she became pregnant from him, not the moment he died. But since the Gemara already gave an answer, so he said that's sufficient, but really the Gemara could have given that same type of answer, also that it would still be a suffix if you waited 1 month. So not just when you wait 2 months, when you wait one month, it also would be a suffix. So we have to wait 3 months. But the Gemara is still not finished asking. He says, okay, wait a second. Wait 2.5 months to get married. Why do you have to wait full 3 months? As the Gemara explains. If she gives birth 7 months after she gets married to the second one, she waited 2.5, and then she's giving birth 7 months later. So Haibar Shiva, if it's 7 months later, obviously Labasu. Obviously it's from the second husband, which is a 7-month baby, and because it's already 9.5 months from the first husband. And which is obviously overdue, and way overdue, and not suspecting for that. Then she gives birth 6.5 months after getting married. Okay, Habar Tisha, then obviously it's a 9-month baby Lakamo from the first one, because the Ibam Basru, if it's from the second husband, Bar Shita Palga Lachai. A 6.5-month-old baby doesn't survive. It has to be at least 7 months or 9 months. So why have to wait full 3 months? Wait just 2.5 months. Says he was not true. Because if you wait only 2.5 months and she would give birth 6.5 months later, you could say it is from the second husband. How? Because Mazurta said, even according to one who says, in the Mesechtas need the pregnant kutim. You led this latas, a woman who's giving birth to a 9-month baby. And your does not give birth in truncated amounts. It's a full-term 9-month baby, because less than that it won't survive. Yoldel Zayin, but if it's the other type of Talmudic birth, which is after 7 months, your ledus mukutan doesn't have to be even the full 7 months. It could be even in truncated parts. You know, like it says the pasuk in Shmuel Beis. The source is that in Shmuel Alpha, the pasuk says that vayihilet kufes uyamim, that it was for a season of days. It says Chana became pregnant, gave birth to a son, and she called him Shmuel. That was the famous Shmuel. Now, Tkufas Yamim, miyut Tkufas Beis. The minimum, which when you're not specifying means the minimum of seasons is Beis, is 2. And miyut Yamim, the minimum of days is also Beis, also 2. So it turns out that after 6 months and 2 days, he was born. So you see that doesn't even have to be a full 7 months. It could be even 6 months and 2 days. And therefore, we would have to suspect 6.5 months later that maybe it is from the second one. So that would not verify it. Therefore, you have to wait 3 months. But the Gemara has a different question. It says a different angle. But top the mashu. Actually, why don't you just wait literally just a little bit, either a week or 2? Chatay says it can't be literally just a little bit, because you would have to wait at least 3 days for the time it takes for the seed to conceive. But just wait, let's say, a week or 2. And then between us, let her get married to someone else. Oh, so what are you doing? Because the moment it's been 3 months for when the husband's out of the picture, for the first husband, let's say when the husband died, where that's already the time when you could recognize if a woman is pregnant after the first trimester, and then labotka, check her right after what would have been the first trimester, which is only possible from the first husband. Check her breasts, the way women usually have, that they become full with milk, they start lactating, and it starts filling up. And if she's pregnant at that point, 3 months from when her first husband died, well, obviously it's from the first husband. Because from the second husband, it wouldn't be recognizable yet, because not yet 3 months from when they even got married. Because you're missing that little bit that you waited after the death of the first husband before you married, let's say, a week or 2 later with the second husband. And if it's not recognizable yet, and it gets recognizable only, let's say, that 2 weeks later, well, then for sure it's from the second husband. So Amr of Safri says, no, aim bait kindes on the so you don't do inspections on married women. We don't want to be discussing the husbands. They're saying, what are you doing? Were you checking her out because you're saying maybe this is still something from the first husband? We don't do that, and therefore that wouldn't be a good option, and therefore we wait the 3 months. But says, okay, you don't have to even inspect her, you don't even touch the woman. If we never took a bilucha, Why don't you just have someone check her out, a detective, as she's walking? Because when she walks on soft earth, you could tell if she's pregnant because her gait is recognizable, the way she walks, because she digs in deeper into the ground than most women because the child weighs her down. So why don't you just check how she walks? So Amram Chami says, no, it's not a good option because Isha Mechapasma, a woman covers over herself, meaning she doesn't want to be perceived as if she's pregnant because she doesn't want people to realize that it's the child of the first husband. She wants that her child should inherit from her second husband, where she's going to be part of that, and she wants him to inherit that they should think it's from the second husband. So therefore, it wouldn't be a good option to check her out even as she's walking. But then the Gemara asks like this: since you tell me the reason why you have to wait is because of the child, because we don't want to be a suffix if it's from the first husband or the second husband. But when you know that she's pregnant from the first husband, you know that. You see that she's pregnant. So then tinasi, then she should be allowed to get married right away because you don't have any more the suffix regarding the child, and that's the whole reason you say you have to wait 3 months. So why do we learn the Bryce? A person cannot get married from his friend, let's say, who died, and she's pregnant, or that she was nursing. You're not get married in that period when she's pregnant or nursing. Vimnas and to be married her, he has to divorce her, can never be married forever. Why? What's the problem? There's no more problem about paternity of the child anymore, so why would that be a problem? To the contrary, the fact that you know she's pregnant, you'll know it from the first husband. Says the Gemara, that's a different concern. That's a concern that if she's pregnant and now she becomes impregnated again from the second husband when she's pregnant with the first one, it might make the fetus into a sandal, which is like the form of like a type of a fish, which could deform the first child. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, then the Deinami, then his child also. Meaning we should never let a man be intimate with his pregnant wife because she might become pregnant again, which seems to have been the problem in Talmudic times or concern, which is then going to press against the other embryo and squash the form of his face like this sandal type of a fish, which doesn't have a form. So why is it specifically his friend's ex-pregnant wife and not even his own pregnant wife? Says Gemara, no. Because if you hold, like which was the machlekes in the first page of it, Beis and Beis, that's such a situation where it could be dangerous, they could use some form of contraception. So they'll use contraception and it won't cause pregnancy. And in the according to one that says that, don't worry, from heaven they'll have mercy. So from heaven they'll have mercy, and never a person allowed to be intimate with his pregnant wife. So the question is here also, when she's from the first husband pregnant, so what's the concern? If the one that says that with a pregnant woman you're allowed to use contraception, a cloth, so use a moich. And according to the one that says, don't worry, from heaven they'll have mercy. From heaven they'll have mercy. Why can't you marry the friend's pregnant wife? So the other says a different reason. Because during relations he's going to crush the embryo. He's going to push and put pressure on the baby, and for that they were concerned about. So the Gemara says, then his own pregnant wife also should be such a concern for the life of the fetus. So his own baby he's going to be concerned for. So the Gemara says, here also is going to be concerned because the person will not deliberately kill an embryo. So why are we concerned for marrying his departed friend's pregnant wife? So the other says a different understanding. Stamul Baris, generally a pregnant woman, when she's going to give birth, she's going to go ahead and nurse the baby. And we're concerned. What are we concerned for? As we continue to Amid Beis, that if he's going to marry her, maybe after she gives birth, she's going to become pregnant again from her new husband. But that's going to cause that the milk is going to congeal, and it's not going to lactate anymore. She's not going to produce milk anymore. And now her baby is going to die from starvation. Therefore, you cannot marry the pregnant or the nursing woman because concerned she has to nurse the baby. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, then his own pregnant wife or nursing, he should not be able to have relations with her because it might stop producing of her milk. So no, his baby, he's going to feed it, eggs and milk, don't worry, they'll have formula. So the Gemara says, her baby also, he'll provide for the baby with eggs and milk. Says the new husband, since it's not his own baby, he's not going to provide the formula for that baby. He's not going to actively kill the baby, but he's not going to provide. And it's for that we're concerned. So the Gemara says, okay, but why doesn't she go and petition from the inheritors of her first husband, which if this is a baby from the first husband, to provide for his baby? Says Abaye says a very important emotional principle. He says, Isha boisha lo b'lebezna. A woman is embarrassed to come to court to petition the inheritors for her son, which is from her previous husband. And Vaideke says, but no, she's going to kill her son, meaning passively, her son is going to die from hunger because she's going to be too embarrassed to petition the court to get it, and the baby's not going to have formula, and her new husband's not going to want to give, and that's why you have to wait by a pregnant and nursing woman. Yeah, we know the paternity, that's not the concern, but it's for the viability of the child to be able to get the nutrients it needs from the nursing mother, which, if she becomes pregnant, she's going to lose that ability. Now, we said in the Mishnah, that both Yevamos and regular women, you have to wait, achas basulas, whether they're virgins, achas baulas, or whether they had already had cohabitation, you have to wait 3 months from the previous relationship. So the Gemara 1, this seems redundant. Hainu basulas, v'hainu arusas. They're both the same thing. A woman who's a virgin is because she was only engaged, where the way a Yevama is basula if she was only engaged. And hainu ba'ula is hainu nesuas. If she's ba'ula, which means she already had relations, obviously because she was married. So that seems redundant. So this says, you're right. This is what the Mishnah is saying. Don't say achas this, achas that, which sounds like it's two different distinct things. Rather, it's all one and it's explaining. Achas besulas v'achas ba'ula is whether she's a virgin, whether she's not a virgin. For example, shenis armuloi, shenis garshab, she's widowed or divorced. Beim and erison, whether from being engaged, which that's the case of basula, and beim and whether from marriage, which that's the case of ba'ula. Now, the Gemara brings a story related to the halacha of the Mishnah, that Rabbi Lazar lo ala beim Midrash. Rabbi Lazar did not go to the base of Medrash. And Ashkel Rabasi encountered Rabbi Amalei, said to him, Samayim Rabban Beim Rasha, I wasn't able to come to the base of Medrash today. What did the rabbi say in the base of Medrash? So Amalei said to him, Hachar Birchin. Birchin said, Halacha Kreb Yesi, which we mentioned the Mishnah. Rabbi Yesi permits arusais, if a woman is only engaged to her previous husband, then now that she's released from him, she can get married, doesn't have to wait, because you have no concern for the Zera or the Rishon, because she was never married, she was only engaged. And also, that in a Nesua, a married woman, although she cannot get married, but she could get engaged. And why did he pick Rabbi Yesi, not Rabbi Huda? Rabbi Huda, actually the one that was explicit about this, he also permits an arusa linase, and he does it explicitly, is because Rabbi Yesi, what's called nimuka imoy. We always rule like him, he has his reasoning with him, so therefore he says, halachas Rabbi Yesi, although it's really also Rabbi Huda. But the Gemara makes a comment. It says, well, Machlal, the inference is that the Tanakama who said in our Mishnah that no, all women cannot get married and not get engaged whether she's a rusas or basulas, whereas making it prohibited even if she was only engaged before, to now even just get engaged and for sure get married, obviously it's an individual Tana who's disagreeing with Rabbi Yesi, and it's not the anonymous Rab who disagree, because if it was a stam of a Rab, we wouldn't say Allah is like Rabbi Yesi. So it says they go in, yes. Vatan, this we're learning the Brisa that it's a Yachid that was disagreeing with Rabbi Yesi and Yehuda. Because the Brisa says the following case. If you have a woman who was always running to her father's household, and also at the time of her husband's death, she was, again, as she often is, for a long period of time, for months at end, she was by her father's house. Well, you cannot say she was pregnant from her first husband, because 3 months before he died, she wasn't even with him. Let's say there was a lot of anger in her husband's household, and she was not intimate with him for a long time. Or her husband was locked up, incarcerated, and then he died in jail as he was there for a few years. Let's say her husband was elderly or ill, or she was ill, or she even miscarried after her husband died. Or let's say where her womb was missing, and obviously she could not become pregnant. She was elderly or katana, or she was actually too young to become pregnant. Islandness, which is from birth, she doesn't have the signs of femininity, of being able to have a child, of having her breast developed or her hair. Or she's just not fit to have children, which that includes if, let's say, she did it medically or because of some type of illness, she cannot have a child. Either way, Remeir, we see it's the Yachid, he's the Tanakh of a Mishnah, says, I don't care. You have to wait 3 months, because we were geyser even when she's not fit, to a case when she is fit, which is essentially that principle of, like, let's say even Arusa cannot get married, because we just did a blanket gezer on everybody, even if she's not fit to have a child. Whereas Rabbi Huda, and that's the same opinion of Rabbi Yesi, all these women, we have no concern. So like get married, engaged, get married right away. So we see that when Rabbi Yechon says Allah is like Rabbi Yesi, yes, because the Tanakh Kama disagrees, is only a Yachid is that of Remeir. However, Amr B'chei Bar Haba, he says, Chaz Rabbi Yechon ultimately retracted from ruling like Rabbi Yesi. And Amr Rabbi Yesi says, if Rabbi Yechon really did retract, it's Memasnitin de Karma, which is from the Brisa, which was taught in the Kerem B'Yavna, Because of that Mishnah, that's what Hadubay, that's why he retracted and said like the Tanakama of our Mishnah. Because the time learned the Brayso, he says, he says, I heard from the mouth of the sages, not like Rabbi Yisi, but Karen B'Yavna. Now, why is it called the vineyard in Yavna? Yavna was where the yeshiva was because they would sit in rows like the way a vineyard is planted, so it's called Karen B'Yavna. But be that as it may, what did the Chacham say? They all have to wait 3 months, which again is like the Tanakh of Mishnah, not like Rabbi Yisi. Now, only Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Yirmiyah said to Rabbi Zeka, Ki Eilis like Rabbi Bo, when you go up in front of Rabbi Bo, Rabbi posed him the following contradiction. Miyam Rabbi Yechon really say, again, initially, before he retracted, did he really say, Allah like Rabbi Yisi, Allah like Rabbi Yisi? But Rabbi Yechon himself is well known, he says it mentioned many times in Shas, Halachic Stam Mishnah, Halach is like when you have an anonymous Mishnah. If it's not, and in our Mishnah we learned the anonymous opinion was, Kol Anashim, all women, Lo Yinastu B'Lo Yisarsu, then I'll get married, and I'll get engaged, Ashilim Shlosh Chadashim, until you wait 3 months. Achas Besulas, V'achas Be'ulas, whether they were a virgin or not virgin, all of them have to wait. So if we have a Stam Masnitin like that, how could he have said, Allah is like a B'isi, which is not like the Stam Mishnah? So Malay Rabbi Bo said to him, whoever posed this contradiction to you, was not concerned for his flour, meaning he's not even paying attention to what he's grinding and what he's coming out of his mouth, in other words, to the words that he's saying. Because that's an anonymous opinion with a dispute right after that. Because in our Mishnah itself, Rabbi Yishmael Yehuda disagree with that stam, Tana of our Mishnah. Then we don't rule like the halacha, like the anonymous opinion. If Rabbi Yehuda Nasi himself right away or at any point, put a disputant's opinion after that. Because Damar Papa, every time Hashem said he was actually Rabbi Yechon himself who said this principle. Machlekes ve'achkaf stam. When you have a dispute, and then you have either right after that or some other point in time in that say in another Masechta, at least in that same Seder, you have an anonymous opinion mentioned like one of those opinions, then halachic is stam. Then halachic is like the anonymous, because at a later point in time, later on, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is telling you this anonymous opinion without saying who it is. Obviously, that's how we rule. But stam v'achkach machlekes. But if you have an anonymous opinion and then you have a machlekes, like in our Mishnah, we right after we say the anonymous opinion of the Tanakh, we say a dispute on this. And halachic stam, halacha does not follow like the anonymous opinion. There is no difficulty to how we could have ruled like Rabbi Yisi. Now, related to this, mistamich v'oz Rabbi Bo was walking and leaning akasvei de Reb Nachum Shamei on the shoulder of his attendant, his shamish Reb Nachum. And menaked v'ozl, and this Reb Nachum was plucking and gathering hilchasa. Halachas, psukas, clear-cut halachas like this person, halachas like that person, minei from Ravo. So by minei, so as the Rebbe Ravo was leaning on Reb Nachum, Nachum is asking from him all these questions. He asked him, "Machlekes v'achkaf stam mai." What's halacha? If you have in the Mishnah, you have a dispute, and then later on you have an anonymous opinion on this. What's halacha? So Malay says halacha stam, like we mentioned before. Halacha is like that anonymous opinion. Stam v'achkaf machlekes mai. What's halacha if you have an anonymous opinion, and then later on it's brought as a dispute? So Malay says in halacha kistam, like we had answered before. Then halacha is not like the anonymous opinion. But then he continues asking. He says, let's say in the Mishnah it's mentioned anonymously. But in the Brisa, which is what's called from the word of Brisa, is from the word of bar, of the outside. It's not in the primary corpus of the text of the Mishnah. It's in some other Tanoic texts which were left out. But there it's mentioned as a machlekes. What's halacha? Malay says halacha kistam. Halacha is like the Mishnah, which Rabbi Yehuda put together, and that's the corpus. And they was mentioned anonymously. So halacha is like that stop. Machlekes b'masnitin. Let's say in the Mishnah it's mentioned as a dispute. There's tama b'braisa. Now in the braisa it's only mentioned anonymously, like one of the opinions. What's halacha? So Malay said to him, "It's getting to Memegimel Rav." Rabbi, now because Rabbi who put together, organized the Mishnayos, Lo Shana, he didn't teach that as part of the Mishnayos text. Meaning he didn't want to mention anonymously. He mentioned only as machlekes. So he didn't teach it as a stama. So Reb Chiyam, who was a student of Rabbi, who he put together the brises, minayin loy. Where does he get this? That halacha should be like that anonymous opinion that he mentioned anonymous in the brisa. In other words, that we don't necessarily go with the stama in the brisa. We go based on what the Rebbe of Reb Chia, who put together Mishnayos, did, and he only mentioned as machlekes. That would not tell us that the halacha would be like the stama of the brisa.